Welcome to Connection to the Cosmos with me, your host, Dr. Lisa Thompson, where I have out of this world conversations with extraordinary people. And today I am so excited to have my good friend and soul sister, Brandi Strieter, join me for today's conversation. I have known Brandi for the last, I think, 4 years or so. We were in mastermind together with Sunny Don Johnston. And I am continually inspired by her evolution. So just a little bit more about Brandi. Brandi is a master's degree in education. She's an intuitive guide, energy healer, and certified mind, body, and spirit practitioner. Is that the dogs? They just want to join. They want to say hi. So she has mentored under transformational thought leader Sunny Don Johnston since 2016 and is proud to be community ambassador to Elevate, one of the membership communities. Sunny Don Johnston's international membership community, which is dedicated to personal growth and empowerment. She also serves as Sunny's personal photographer, social media specialist, and consultant for the newly released multi-dimensional oracle cards.
No.
I know, that's a mouthful.
That really is. That it's entirely unnerving sitting here listening to that. So
So you've come a long way in your journey because you weren't always into this spiritual stuff. You were at one time like a full-on probation officer, and
yes.
very mainstream. And I, so share a little bit about how you kind of grew up and that lifestyle of being probation officer, and then what finally got you into this world of spiritual connection.
Wow, that's a loaded question, Lisa. So yeah, I went to school. I got my degree in criminal justice, and interestingly enough, I also got a master's degree in education. Now, never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that I would be teaching. It was just because it was something that the county supplied us with, one of our benefits. So I said, sure, I'll go ahead and get a master's degree. But yes, I was a probation officer for over 10 years, and I loved working with people. And interestingly enough, before that, the reason I got into that is because when in my teens and 20s, I was into loss prevention, and which is, shoplifters and employee theft. And I always knew who the people were going to be, but I didn't realize how I knew. So yeah, I was a probation officer, and really expected and planned to climb that ladder and work in the department. And I loved the people, and I loved my job. And the universe gave me a sign that I could not ignore. Mm-hmm. And if you want to go into that, we can go into that. But I knew immediately that I could no longer stay in law enforcement, and stopped working and became a stay-at-home mom to my children. Now, that was not planned at all. But after a period of being a stay-at-home mom, I began walking through some injuries and an illness and a diagnosis, and lo and behold, really fell on my knees in despair, and finally opened up to the universe and asked for help, and had a full-on spiritual awakening.
Wow.
So it was from like 2014 to 17.
Okay. And before that, though, I think you had mentioned at one point that you were an atheist.
Yeah. So
that's a huge transformation right there.
So I didn't really grow up with one religion. My parents allowed us to really dive into all different religions, and so I learned about everything. Never really resonated with formal religion, but loved the practices and the ceremony and the tradition and all of that goes along with it. I really saw myself back then as believing in science. That's what I said. I believe in science, and I still do. I still believe in science.
I'm a scientist too, so yeah.
Yeah, so I was very black and white, and if it wasn't in my reality in front of me, then it didn't make sense to me. And I had very linear thinking. I was only seeing the world through one lens, and then the death of my mother, and then an injury that took a year and a half to heal, and then of course the illness. Man, what they say, like when people go to prison to find Jesus, right? I get that saying now, right?
Yeah.
When there was nothing left in the external for me to grab onto, finally, like a big 2 by or 4 by 4 on the head, I opened up to what was greater than I could understand.
So what did you experience in that awakening? Like, what was the first thing that started happening or coming to you?
So the very first thing, and I mean, I think this is, there might be other ways to do it. I don't know. There's not a rule book or for this. And of course, at the time when you're going through this, you have no idea what's happening.
Yeah.
You already think you're crazy. So, but what happened was I was introduced to my higher self.
Mm.
And so really, like, what does that even mean? Like, what, like, let's go back to basics. Like like now I talk about that, but at the time, what the hell is what do you mean? Um, and really understanding that that voice that I hear in my head is my ego, and recognizing that I have a personality that's a piece of me, but not my entire being. Like, that's really hard to learn at first. And so seeing the ego, and then meeting the higher self piece. And for me, I mean, I don't know about you, but I had like a battle.
Mm.
I mean, there was a battle, and my ego in the beginning really felt like higher self was trying to take over. And of course, you can't say this. So there's no words when you're going through it at the time, because you're like, what am I talking about? But there really is this push and pull of, and then ultimately a surrender and an acceptance, right?
Mhm.
Where then I can intentionally embody and align with both of them. And so it's not just a snap of the finger,
Mm.
but that for me, that had to happen. That was the first, that's how I opened the door to
Okay.
spirituality.
So
And
how
then of course there's a million different ways you can go once you open that door. But I had to get to the door. And so it was literally like climbing a rope to get there.
beautiful. So can you, I guess, for you, in your words, can you explain a little bit more about how you were able to align the ego with the higher self? Because I think a lot of people are still stuck in that. Like they do have this battle going on, and we're human. So I think it's, until we're like ascended masters, then maybe we are going to continue having that polarity inside of us.
Well, and I think it's an ongoing process, right? So
Yeah.
yes, I found alignment, and because I'm having a human experience, I still dip out every once in a while. It's just much easier for me to pull it back now. Um, but in the beginning, so it was, like Sunny always says, it's either divorce, disease, or death, that kind of
Mhm.
helps people step into this new way of being. And for me, in my situation, it was my mom's death, certainly, but then my disease, or not my disease, but the disease that manifested as a result of the disalignment, right? And so on a physical level, the disease affected some neurological stuff. And so I had neurological cognitive stuff going on at the same time as physical. So for me, I had to, well, I learned, if the physical, and this really pissed me off, but if the physical is not in alignment, then everything else is out of alignment too, right?
Right.
I did not like that answer, because I thought I was good everywhere else. It's just the physical.
I think a
So
lot of people get trapped there, actually. They don't realize that all the inside environment actually creates that physical expression.
Yeah, so the physical was like just the icing on the cake. So I've been digging backwards. But once I was able to really focus on my physical health and get to a point where I had energy, because my life force energy was so low. We know what that means, like physically not having energy to do stuff, but I mean, it was mentally, emotionally, everything. I had to build back that life force energy through healing treatments before I could then, and for me, I chose the next piece to be emotional work.
Mhm.
So really digging into the stories and meeting the different aspects and finding forgiveness for self, for engaging in experiences and understanding that they're all lessons. And so there's a process that you go through where you forgive yourself for all of those things, depending on what they are. And each time you forgive yourself, then you can call that piece home.
Mhm.
So it's a lot of embodiment work. And after the emotional pieces, which I still work on, of course, was the embodiment piece of like, meeting my inner child and like, what the hell is an inner child? I didn't even know what that, like, I went to school for criminal justice. I don't know what all of this is. But when the time was right and I was able to accept my inner child, it was beautiful, and then just pulling all of that energy back in me. Now I'm able to vibrate at a much higher frequency so I can tap into other stuff. But I had to do all of that, you know, um, processing the density and kind of transmuting that energy in order to be able to embody more light.
Yeah. So I guess how I kind of see it and how I imagine it for myself too. So divorce, like I grew up with this kind of stuff, but that doesn't mean that I practiced it my whole life, right? And I had two really toxic marriages. And so it was the second one that after I went through that divorce, I'm like, okay, no, it's time for me to become back to who I am and who I know I am. And it was starting to peel back different layers so that I could then realign with that higher self and then start really connecting. So I agree. Divorce, disease, death. So I didn't have disease or death, but I did have the divorce, which just allowed me to fully step into who I am. And that's been over 7 years now
Yeah.
process.
Aren't humans just so crazy that like we have to create this experience that's so so full of trauma in order to be able to want something different. I mean, we're just crazy beings.
Yes. Oh, yeah. You're freezing a little. Are you still there with me, Brandi?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
here.
Okay, we're good. Okay, there was just a little freezing going on. Don't know if it's on your side or mine, but
Okay.
just keep on going. So now, with all of this experience, so recently you underwent the quantum healing hypnosis technique, right? And so
Yes.
I do past life regression therapy, and I have been reading all of Dolores Cannon's books, and so she is the one who created QHHT.
Mhm.
And so I would love to know what your experience, because you got to like fully dive into, I think, 5 different lifetimes, and they
I
weren't all.
did.
So share what that experience was like, what you got from that.
Yeah, I don't know. Now you're freezing on my end. So technology is our friend. So
Yes.
I'm not sure. My internet looks good. So um but yeah, so I never even heard of QA. I don't even know what that stands for. But I was guided to do this. Like I said, I never even heard of it. And I was guided to do it, and I signed up and paid my money all within like 5 minutes. So I knew it was spirit guided because I had no idea what I was doing. Um, but yeah, I recently did a session. And do you want to explain what it is first?
Well, you explain it from your
Oh, okay,
experience.
okay, okay,
Because
okay,
I'm actually not a QHHT practitioner, but I do something very similar. So I got trained with Denise Lynn, and I've
okay.
created my own way of doing that.
Okay, so so I don't know what the textbook definition is. My experience is, so it's hypnosis.
Yeah.
That much I can say. It's hypnosis. So it's like a guided hypnosis. And so during my session, they ask you to provide a list of questions
Mm.
that you would like your higher self to give you information on. And so I had, a variety of, some business, some personal, some family, a bunch of different questions. Um, and then she took me through a guided meditation, and where I was in where I was connected with my higher self. And I had 5 different lifetimes pop up. And I will say I've done hypnosis before.
Mhm.
Um, and I've done one future life, and I've done some past lives, but they were always here on Earth. Some in some different countries. And so I kind of expected it to be like that. And that's not what came.
Okay.
So apparently I am ready to tap into other energy. Um, my very first lifetime that I woke up into, because that's what it feels like. It feels like you're waking up.
Mhm.
Um, it was, oop, it was, I was standing on a green grassy hill, and it was something like The Sound of Music is what in my mind's eye is what I saw. And there was nothing around, but I felt the need to go underneath the mountain. I know that
Yeah.
doesn't make sense, but um, so I descended. Don't ask me how. It's kind of like you're kind of like in a dream state. So it doesn't all make sense. Like the pieces aren't all in a row. But I descended into the mountain, and it was like there was a whole workstation. Like it wasn't just a hollow mountain. It would be something. It remind me of like where mining and stuff would be. There's a lot of lights and activity, and there was electricity and people working. Um, and what I saw was there was God, I don't even know really how to say this, but what I saw was like an aircraft. It was like a ship of some kind.
Mhm.
I don't know more than that. I just knew that it was something big that people were working on. And so in that moment, she guided me, and I talked, and I asked if I could go for a ride on the ship, and they said yes. And so I was then inside the ship looking out, which was really interesting because it was um, not like anything I've ever seen before in this lifetime. And I asked what I was doing on the ship. And one of my questions that I had previously submitted was about my sleep. For the last
Mm.
couple of years, I have, I wake up every morning at like 3 a.m. and insomnia is just um, something I've been walking through. And so that was one of my questions, what can I do? Because of course, I'm trying everything. And so this lifetime showed me, I guess, this is so crazy, what I do at night when I'm sleeping. And so I was told, well, this is where you come to work. And I thought, it makes sense at the time, but now my ego is like, what do you mean? What do I do? What do I do at work? And how do I leave my body? And all of those questions. So again, we're talking about astral travel and all that. But they said, yes, this is where I come to work. I don't know if I fly the ships or if I just work down there. But I asked what we were doing, where we were going. And what we were doing, it doesn't even make any sense, but we were um, like collecting, siphoning, I don't know, water. And we were taking water from one place to another place that needed water.
Okay.
Um, and the water was changing form. So it's like we collected it, it changed form somehow, and then it was being transported to a new place. And
Okay.
that was, yeah. And so that was kind of like it for that lifetime. And then that was all they wanted me to know. So I have no idea about water collection. I have no idea where we were going. I don't know why ships are in the middle of mountains. I have many, many questions. But apparently that's why I'm not sleeping.
Well, and one thing that I want to bring up about that is that, we think about lives being past or future, but in my understanding and experiences with all the clients I've had, all the research I've done on quantum mechanics for since the year 2000, so 22 years, um, all timelines exist simultaneously. So we are living these parallel lives in a sense. Like there is part of us that is doing that. And so, yeah, when you're asleep, our physical body is still there laying in bed. But often we do leave that body through astral travel with our minds, and we are working in other dimensions, other realities.
Yes, well, I would like to stop working at 3 a.m. in the morning. That's what I
Well,
would like.
I keep
Yes,
waking up at
isn't that awesome?
yeah, I keep waking up at 3 a.m. too. And it's usually it's my bladder that's waking me up,
Yeah,
but it's something else too. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
but that's
It's a
the
special it's a special time.
it is. That's the thinnest veil time, the witching hour, they call it.
Yeah, crazy. And so then afterward, do you want to hear one more?
Oh, yeah,
So,
yeah.
so after that one, this one was a little bit, the first one I didn't really quite understand so much, but this one was so fun. So when I woke up, I was a child. Um, of course, I'm not this Brandy. It's just my energy. Um, I was a child and I was in this really, I don't like minimalistic, futuristic type building, and it wasn't somewhere on Earth. That much I know. And
Mhm.
there were all different kinds of beings, but all children. They were all children. And so we were in this big building with long hallways, and they were like little pods or spears that had white on them, white and silver pods. And they were above, they didn't go to the ground. They were, I don't know, floating, but they were up, up higher. Um, and there was all this activity, and so I saw the inside of the buildings, like, and it was almost like kind of like a dormitory or something like that. Um and then we went outside, and there was like a playground. It wasn't like a typical playground, though. It was a different kind of playground. Um and it was like, they had brought pieces of earth into this kind of like a Disneyland, where it looked like earth, but it wasn't earth. It was just replica. um and what I found, what was so cool, first of all, I loved the way I felt. I was so young and full of energy, and oh, the curiosity. There was so much curiosity. That was the feeling. Like I just wanted to explore, that feeling when you're a kid.
Yes.
And so what it was a school, and it was an energy school. I mean, I don't know if that was a name, but we were learning. It was like, so I've never seen, what's that? What's that Hogwarts? What's that
Oh,
book that everybody read? Yeah,
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. So it was like, I think Harry Potter would be like a school where they learn how to use their tools or tricks, or again, I haven't seen it, but it's what I imagine. So we were learning how to create. We were learning, it was so fun. It was like games and fun, and we were doing things, and it was just so fun. And what my higher self told me was, oh, this is where you learned how to transmute energy. This is where you learn how to create energy. And I thought that was really, really cool, because now I'm at a point in my life where I'm understanding some of those concepts, and to
Mm,
see kind of where they come from and why I know them,
yeah.
because again, we don't go to school for this.
No, we don't. Although I can say I did grow up in a spiritual school where it was trying to be kind of like Hogwarts. We were learning things like that. It just unfortunately was a little culty. It's because of the leader, the person that was leading the school, but amazing information. So yeah, it's yeah, super cool. And so how has that knowing how to transmute energy, like how do you actually apply that in your life on a practical level? Is it con
Wow.
like, is it conscious or is it just something that you just naturally do?
No. That's a great question. So I've never thought about that before. Um, yeah, I mean, could it have been unconscious? Certainly. But I am just now, in the last few years, really conscious and intentional about actually doing it. So
Mhm.
seeing the denser energy, um, surrounding it with love and light, because that's how we transmute, right? And then creating new pathways to see that neutralized. So I think it's intentional. Now it takes a lot of work, um, but I think I think that it will come. I think that it may. So this is just dropping in right now, but I
Yeah,
think that it will become, um, unconscious once once there's more muscle memory. But I'm still very much in the, process phase.
yeah. Well, and okay, so that's one thing that I know that you have really worked on for this lifetime of learning how to actually embody this human physical reality. Because it's easy for you to be like out there, right? Out in la la land, woo woo, cosmic world. And
Mhm.
so, talk about how you have learned how to really be here present in this body, because I think a lot of people who maybe are watching this or just out there, they're like, okay, well, I want to be, I'm done with this life, I want to be out there, but we are here to be human for a reason. Like, this is a school.
Ah, being human is hard.
That's
It's
the
it's it's hard, and, God, and I loved to be disconnected and disassociated and not here, because I found it so hard. Um, it just, everything is uphill, it feels like here. Everything takes so much energy. It's kind of like, being in quicksand, or thick sludge walking through here, versus when you're up there, there's no resistance. It's very easy, you're in flow. And so it's easy to want to go up. But yes, Lisa, you're right. We we chose to incarnate, and we are here now having a human experience. And when I talked about earlier, when I had my meeting with my higher self, um, one of the first things that was told to me was that you're more than human. And and that scared me for a while. What do you mean? But the more that you embody that, um and I know, and I really wonder how many people, because it's not like we talk about this, but I learned what my purpose was. I know why I'm here.
So
Um
tell us,
I
why are you?
And see, I don't know why that gets so uncomfortable, I'm here to help people. I'm here to be a bridge. I'm here to shine my light. I'm here to pull people over and show them how to do it, because I've walked it. And
Right.
I don't mean just physical. I mean, yes, there was the physical piece from disease and stuff, but I mean how to actually, move from the third dimension to the fifth dimension and walk through that embodiment in the fourth. That's why I'm here now.
Yep.
That's terrifying and frightening and exciting all at the same time. Did I know that when I was a probation officer? Hell no. But what's interesting is I've been helping people my whole life, so I've just moved from one way to another. It's really the same thing.
Yeah.
um,
Well, and I think
and
that's
so,
why we resonate so well, because
yeah.
we are very similar in that way. And we're doing it maybe a little bit different, but that's one of the reasons why I want to do this show and why I'm teaching the classes I'm teaching and finally showing up, stepping into my light, right?
Yeah, and it feels so good. So to answer your question, it was I think the only the reason I've been able to do this is because I know my purpose.
Yeah.
If I didn't, it wasn't, I didn't have enough self-love to do it for me before. I mean, that's just the truth.
Mm.
I needed something, something different. And and for me, the first step to really healing was to help others, because the more I helped others, the higher my vibration was, and the more, energy I could take. And so really knowing why we're here, and we're all here for a reason. Um,
Yeah.
and most of us know it deep down. We just don't really talk about it.
Yeah. So how did you actually find your purpose? How did you discover that for yourself? Because I know there are different ways that we can discover it, but I'm curious how you.
Yeah. So I always knew it would be, so I'm a people person. Like, I need my people. So I
Mhm.
always knew it would be connection with people. Um, Originally, I thought that I would be helping people. I volunteered for a lot of Lyme support groups and stuff like that,
Mhm.
and and I enjoyed supporting others, but. mm, there's a lot of people who just yet aren't ready to really heal those pieces and to step into something more. And I knew I didn't want to just stick in the physical stuff without, because you heal that physical piece and then you don't heal the other ones, and then another physical thing pops up. So I
Yeah.
knew that I was kind of like spinning in a circle over there. Um, and so that's actually when I started really working with Sunny and working in Elevate and being part of that community. And sure, it's great to be of assistance, right? But
Yes.
for me, I'm a feeler. I got to go where I feel good, and being in service for me, like I've never felt anything like when I put on that hat or assumed that role, it was like the energy just flowed through me. Meridians were open. I was fully balanced. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I want this. This is what I want. I want that feeling. It's great that I'm helping people too, but
Mhm.
I want that feeling. So for me, finding out what gave me that, I never had that before. Work was always fulfilling, my family was fulfilling, but that feeling in my body, being of service and being connected and letting that energy move through me, there's nothing comparable.
Well, and that's very interesting because one of the things that I teach about in the galactic classes is okay, so in 3D and 4D reality, we still have polarity, right? There's good, bad, positive, negative. But really that's not that polarity isn't doesn't exist at fifth dimension and beyond or fourth density and beyond. And so
Right.
when we get up to those upper levels, and then this is where we're going to talk about how you work with collectives and the different energy levels and how you know. But when you get up to those higher vibrations, it really does become just pure love and it's unity. We are all one, and it is service to others. And whereas in the 3D and 4D reality, it's more service to self. And so when we're talking about different, dimensional beings, you can call them aliens or whatever, but it's more, are they service to self or service to others rather than, oh, those are negative or positive. So I'm trying to like reframe that terminology,
Yeah.
because even the service to self ones, it's not that they're bad, they just haven't evolved to that
Right.
higher dimensional level.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about this, Lisa.
What?
Um, so yeah, so for me, it was like once. So when you think about the vibration scale, right? I I connected with my higher self, who was closest to me or closest to my energy here in the physical. And then once I kind of embodied that, like I said, the door opened, and all kinds of energy came in, which is exciting, and really can be really frightening too in the beginning when you don't know. So, you know,
Yeah.
like I think, I didn't have a lot of experience with angels. I didn't. so I was pretty neutral on what angels were. I didn't think anything, but I'll tell you, even the angels kind of, I'm a backdoor kind of person. Like the energy has to come to me without me knowing, or else I might kind of go offline. So even the angels come to me. I say backdoor because they're very gentle and soft and quiet. They're very nurturing. Not They don't want to scare. And so even having the angels at first, you're like, why the hell am I connecting with angels? That can be a lot in the beginning. Or ascended masters. I think I told you about Jesus. So I didn't think I like I said, I was an atheist, so I guess I had some kind of feelings about Jesus, but I never spent any time thinking about it.
Yeah.
But when I started tapping into energy, I thought it was interesting that I could get a lot of other energies, but I never got Jesus. And I mean that was okay. I was just going to say I didn't really want Jesus, but now I want Jesus. I want my Jesus. He's a good friend of mine. But when he came, he didn't come to me as Jesus. He used Yeshua, and I didn't know what that name was. And it wasn't until I told a friend, and she's like, that's Jesus. I go, no shit, it's
Yeah.
Jesus. I knew it was Jesus. See, they trick me. And so they come in like that without me knowing. And so I will say the same thing is true for collectives. It's not like they just come. Yes, they are so soft and gentle, and um, there's no ego. It doesn't matter. They don't care. They don't, they don't need credit for anything. Jesus didn't tell me he was Jesus because he wanted the message out there. He didn't care that it came from Jesus. He didn't have that ego piece. So I would say the same thing for all higher vibrational energies. Now, when we're talking about some stuff in the fourth dimension, yes, they're still expanding and growing. So they're kind of more like where we are as far as humans on evolution journey. But the collectives that are up in the 9th, 10th, and 11th, it's totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you work with the different collectives and with the ascended masters? Because it's more than just Jesus, right? Yeshua ben Joseph, that you connect
so
with.
nature is nature's a huge piece for me. Most of my stuff either comes when I'm out hiking or walking in nature, or I take baths every night. I do a meditation bath. And I would say I first connected with the water. So water for me is like an incubator.
Okay.
And it's a great portal for energy to move through. So I actually first started in the water. And once I was pretty, it takes time. It takes a lot of time and a lot of patience. So, I mean, I meditated every day for weeks and weeks before this ever happened. And then the higher self would start. And then, so it's not like when I say this, it's not, you can't take one bath and all of a sudden you're talking to Jesus. Well, I mean, you could, I couldn't.
Okay. And I think that's a really good point, because I think some people think, oh, well, it should happen. Why isn't it happening to me? And so it's a practice, and it's really about like true connection, right? Getting out of the ego mind to allow it to come.
Yeah. Well, and it sucks, but and working through those layers first, because whatever you're holding, it's going to be filtered through that. And
Yes.
so, that's something to, not only is your vibration not going to be able to go as high, but it's going to be filtered through a bunch of muck so they might be waiting for you to clear some of that before they come through, just like our deceased loved ones after a death or something. If you're grieving, your vibration is lower because you're in grief and you're not able to connect. Well, as soon as you start rising, oh, here comes the deceased loved one to connect, because you're, raising your vibration. So you have to do that too. But yes, it takes time and practice. And I certainly was not the one in control ever. I'm still not the one in control. I'm not in control. It's the only thing I'm in control of is getting my vibration high enough to reach alignment. That's my responsibility. Once I'm there, then we can open the door. But I don't get to pick and choose who's coming through.
Okay. And so like, okay, so let's say you've raised your vibration and now the door is open. Then what kind of experience are you having? Like, are you getting downloads? Are you getting information? Are they talking? Or like, are you getting images? What is that?
All of the above, all of the above. You know, it's like once you're connected, it's I almost say, have you ever seen that movie Fantasia? It's like a kids movie and it's
Yes,
animated.
we played
Yeah.
that every night for the kids to go to sleep to for a couple years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I like to say that it's all of a sudden like that's how life becomes.
Okay.
Like everything's alive. So it's not like, Jesus is, come here, I'm going to whisper something in your ear and, and pass it on. It's not like for me, of course you only know how it is for you. And that's the cool thing about being human is we are all unique individuals and it's going to come to us in our unique way so that we're able to discern and understand. And so what comes to me isn't going to make sense to anybody else. It's up for me to understand that, right?
Yeah.
And so what it is, it's like the whole world became alive. When you're out in nature, everything's alive. Like that, but to really understand that and feel. So I'm a feeler again, and to feel the energy, it's like it's everywhere. It's every sign, it's every license plate, it's every commercial, it's everything, and it's up to me to be in my body because I like to disassociate. So I really have to make sure to be grounded with meditation and movement and hydration and all of those things. Um, but then I'm just a receiver. Does that
Okay.
help?
I think so. I mean,
Okay.
I'm hoping that makes sense for the audience watching too. But I do love what you say that it comes differently for different people. So just because someone is having one type of experience, if someone isn't having that, it doesn't make it wrong or like you're not doing it right. Just allow it to
Right.
come the way it needs to come.
Yeah, and automatic writing was very helpful, especially in the beginning. Um, Automatic writing is a great way to kind of tap into that energy and get that flowing. So that's really helpful. Of course, you can't do it without I don't know how to do it without meditation. There has to be a place of stillness, and so it's being conscious and present in every moment. So for me, that's not putting on the TV. I mean, I don't have anything on when I'm at home. Not when I drive, I don't have the radio on because driving is a great time to connect because our body, our ego is in process, is kind of taken put aside for a little bit, which opens the door again, right? So
Right.
it's really about choosing to not entertain ourselves and distract ourselves, and then the world comes alive. So we
Yeah.
have a lot of power, we just don't like the way we have to do it.
Right. So when you're okay, you've got the angels, you've got the collectives, you have the ascended masters, you've got some lower energy vibrations. For you, how do you know what different energies are there? Like how do they express themselves or how do you feel them?
Okay, that's a great question. So so in the beginning, when I was learning, especially like with the angels, because there's so many different ones,
Yeah.
when they would come in, so I could feel, I can feel. So feel. So you've talked about the clairs before. Um, so it started with the feeling, but then the more work you do, your other clairs kind of catch up. So the seeing and the smelling and all of that stuff. Um, when they would come in, I could feel the presence. And once I could feel, then I would ask. So the asking piece was really important in the beginning. Who's here? Who's here? Um, and and I would know, but I would need that confirmation. And
Yeah.
so the more I asked and the more confirmation I got, then the more confident I got. And so over time, like I said, I do this every single night. Over time, they got to be where they would come to the same place almost,
Okay.
um, in my energy field. I could so then so like if I'm laying in my bath and I'm meditating, I could be like, oh, Michael's here. Oh, hi. Like it's almost like a okay,
Uh-huh.
let's just bring the whole party in. But I could tell them, I could tell who was who. So I think it's very similar in any kind of energy you're working with, whether it's star energy, whether it's ascended masters. I mean, it's all energy.
It
It's just
is.
energy. That's all we're talking about. So I don't see like, anything that the media or Hollywood has portrayed, because if you think about the way that angels are portrayed too, that's not at all how it is when you're working with angels.
Right.
So it let's just think about that. The angels that we see on movies and stuff are not how it works. And the same thing is true for higher dimensional beings. That's not how it works. It's just light. It's us. We're one. It's
We
just a
are.
little spark. So I always use the visual of an ocean, right? We are the ocean. Source is an ocean, and
Yes.
we're all droplets. And
Yes.
my dogs are droplets. Aliens are We're just energy pieces, and we're all connected, and we're all the same. So
Yes.
anybody can do this. Anybody can do this. If you have a body and you're living here, you just got to learn how to put the ego aside a little bit, raise your vibration high enough to
Mhm.
connect. That's it.
Yep. And I mean, and it sounds easy. So it's just a matter of actually carving out time to do it. Make it a practice. Make it a routine. If it's something that you want to do. Now, it's fine if you don't, right? I mean, we're all going to eventually make it back to source on our own time. But for those that are
We're already there.
right. But so for those that want the extra, like, okay, no, I want to be conscious right now, here and now, then these are just some of the pieces of advice or tools or techniques that people can try to implement and see what works for them.
Yeah. Well, I hate to say it, Lisa, but everybody is going to be doing this soon because we are evolving. Hello, the Great Awakening. So, everybody, even if you don't do anything, even if you don't have the intention, even if you're against it, everybody's frequency is raising right now,
Yeah,
and taking in more light. And so everybody's consciousness is expanding and their ability to take in more. Now, will they choose? Who knows? But
right.
for sure they can.
Well, and as we know, sometimes it has to get really dark before the light shines. So we're in that hopefully final dark piece of humanity
Yes.
where we can get through the muck and then rise and shine. Yeah,
Absolutely. I see it. I see it bright as day. We for sure are.
yeah. Okay. So you recently visited the Big Island and we got to have a lot of fun and talk, but I loved what you shared with me, your experiences of being here on island because um, Goddess Pele, she reside here on the Big Island in Kilauea, which is the most
Mhm.
active volcano on Earth at this time, regularly active. And so I would just love for you to share with the audience what you got to experience with Pele, because I have my upcoming Sacred Soul Kona retreat coming up where we are
Mhm.
working with her energy. And so I have my own experience of how she works with people, but I would love to know what your experience was and what you saw and felt.
Wow. Okay, we're going back. Okay. So yes, I got to visit your beautiful home in October. And to be fair, like I didn't even know who Pele was. Like
Right.
again, I don't know. Like I'm still new at all of this stuff. I mean, I think I knew who she was, but I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
But I felt her. Let's just say that. So we went and we got to see the volcano, and she was erupting, and it was it's not even the visual, it's the feel, I'm a feeler. It was so magnificent. Um, she almost had like, and I don't know anything about history, or I don't know anything, but she had very much like a warrior type energy.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, so like warrior. That's just like rising out of the rising out of the fire, and it was um, so strong and confident and secure, and um, there was so much trust. You know, um, I literally stood there speechless for a couple of minutes just to feel the. I mean, it's mass. It feels um, almost like godlike. I mean, and I don't know what that means, but like an energy that I hadn't felt before, and she was so close, just coming right out. Um, God, I can't. I'm not going to remember exactly what she said. I know I told you because it had just happened, um,
And I don't
which is
remember what
really.
you said, but
Yeah,
yeah.
and it was something about the state of the current. I remember it was about the state of the current affairs, and something about transmutation. I remember it was transmutation, and she was like, "It's all under control. She's got this under control." It was very, very confident, and I mean, she's got this. Like I felt like, okay, I felt safe. We've got this. We're under control. Um, like she just swooped in to take care of everything. It was amazing.
Yeah. When one of the sayings on the island, people who move here, the island either brings you in, Pele brings you in, or it spits you out. And it's true because she stirs shit up. She is a transmuter. So, the energy, whatever needs to be revealed, comes up, it bubbles up, kind of like the vortexes of Sedona bring up that energy.
Oh,
So,
oh, okay.
if there's something that you need to work on, it's going to come up in a really big way. And so then it's like, okay, then how are you going to deal with it? Are you going to um, heal it because it's in your face, or are you going to run away from it?
So she's like a big mirror.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, well, I felt her. I was like, yeah, it's a volcano. Yeah, yeah. And then I was like, oh, it's Pele. Now I know. And I remember telling you, like, I got it now. I got it. I got it. I got it. We're good. It was just like when I got Jesus. Okay, we're here.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Wow. So cool.
I love it because you had not experienced her. You didn't know anything
Mm-mm,
about her. And my first
mm-mm.
experience with her was back when I was still in Olympia. And I was taking a psychic class. And the first night we pulled goddess cards, and we had to feel the energy in our hand before we looked at the card. And I just felt this heat, and I saw this image of this mountain with this powerful woman. And then I turned it over. I'm like, oh, it's Pele. And so like I could feel her energy from that card, which was, and I had been to the island, like 9, 10 years ago with ex-husband number two. And that was a kind of a different situation, but I think she was stirring shit up back then. But I thought I was moving here for the other one we're going to talk about, the manta rays. But Pele, she told me through Lee Walzak that no, she's the one who put me here and put me exactly where I am located. So she helped
See,
bring me.
no control.
So yeah. So now you again, so my spirit animals are the manta rays, and you got to do that experience. And today I'm wearing my manta mala, and I got my manta
Mm.
earrings on.
Ah.
So what I loved about you telling me, you're like, oh my God, you're ninth dimensional beings. So tell me about that experience from your
Okay, so
perspective.
I didn't even. First of all, I'm afraid of fish. Like, let's just start with there. I'm afraid of fish. Okay,
Yeah.
I own it. Um, so I was a little nervous about doing this because it's at night
Yeah.
and in darkness in the
Right.
water. And so I'm just telling you, this was not something that I was excited because I knew it was going to be great, but I was like, I'm not really sure about this. Um, and they're huge animals. And they're not, they don't look like they're from this world. Like they
No,
don't look like anything. So I was blown away about the whole thing. Like I thought it was going to be like a big fish. It does not look like a fish.
they
I
look
don't know
like
what it looks.
spaceships, actually.
Yes. So which is probably good. They didn't look like fish. So I think that I was lucky on that one. But when I got in the water, in the darkness, and again, it's a feeling. God, it was like an orchestra is kind of how it felt. I felt like an orchestra, and they were so. See, I just love that energy. It's
Yeah,
just that feeling of just being supported, you
mhm,
know, unconditional love, being supported. It was almost different than angels because it wasn't so nurturing and motherly kind of feel. Um, but certainly an equal, and like they were of assistance. And so much like the elephants, it was very similar to the elephants, a little bit different. But when you're locked into that energy and you're vibrating at the same frequency at the same time, God, it's so good. It's so good. I just laid there and I just didn't want it to end. I mean, I like wanted to bottle up that moment, and I guess we do. We pull it forward. But it was
yeah,
an amazing moment of my life. Yeah, I would for sure do that 110%. Can't wait to go back.
yeah.
Amazing, amazing, amazing.
Well, I appreciate you saying that because I mean, I talk about it all the time, but having other people that have experienced it at that deep spiritual level, I want the world to come to Kona, come to the Sacred Soul Kona retreat, or do a 1-day private retreat with me, and let me help you experience that energy. And
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a lot different than, let's say, dolphins, and because but I've never been with dolphins out in the wild. I think that would probably be different. This is, yeah, because they are in the wild, because I don't like zoos and all that kind of stuff. So it is
yeah,
different because they're in their natural habitat, and they're there because they want to be. And they wanted to be by us. And they're kind of like horses in a way, because they would come really close and you could tell that they were transmuters, because they would come in and they would do their flips and they were doing, I'm like, I know what you're doing. And it was almost like they're smiling,
yeah,
I mean, they weren't smiling, but I could feel the energy as if they were smiling. Um, God, so cool. Such a great experience, Lisa.
yeah. And I think it was Kinsey Ray that was the one that really kept coming to
Yes.
you. And I got to
Yes. Yes.
Ray, and she,
Yes.
we did it in October on the retreat. So she came up, and okay, so how we know the difference in the manta rays is they have their own unique markings on their chests. And so we
Mm.
have like around 300 identified different individuals with different unique patterns that are named along the Kona coast. They live here year round. So Kinsey has a specific pattern. And so I knew which one she was. And so she came up to me too. So you had been here, and then we had the retreat, and she came up, and she actually, with her pectoral fin, she hit me right in the heart chakra and just was like, it was a zap. And I was like, oh.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, it's amazing. And I'm not even like a fish girl. So yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And my husband, I mean, his biggest fear is sharks, and the bitey sharks, they're nocturnal. And so his biggest fear was getting in the water at night with the manta rays as well. But the beautiful thing is that in 30 years of them doing this night manta snorkel, not one big shark has ever come into any of the spots. It's completely safe. So for
Oh,
those of you
that's
who
good to know.
have some fear, and also there's so many, it's lit up, like really lit up like a swimming pool, because they
Mhm.
have lights on the bottom in that specific location that you and I were in. So yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't afraid. I felt it was good. I mean, I wasn't afraid. Um, and once they came out, it was just all
Right.
fears. Any fears did melt away anyway, because you're just in awe. Like, just I just want to be part of this, you know?
Yeah. Yes. Well, I know that's why I do it. I've done it so many times and it never gets old. Just like, and I have that elephant connection too. I went to Thailand separately from you, but I got to have that mind meld with the elephants. And so we're very in sync in terms of our animal experiences and our other
Yeah.
energy experience. So I would love just this hour went by so fast. There's so much more
Yes.
that I could talk to you about and want to talk to you about. Um, okay, if you have just a couple more minutes,
Okay.
I want to know, because this has been something I've had to come to grips with, is that as you evolved in your spirituality and in what you're doing in life, how have the people around you kind of evolved or left your life, or maybe new ones come in? Um, can
Wow.
you briefly give some information about that? Because I think a lot of people don't they don't want to share who they really are because they're afraid of losing people in their life.
I mean, so for sure, spirituality can be a lonely path. It certainly can be. Um, it's funny, my throat chakra is just um
And I know I'm throwing this one at you. We hadn't talked really
yeah,
about
no, it's good. These are all good questions. Um, it takes me a second to, you know, it's a process, you know. The most important thing we can do is teach by example. And so I think a lot of people in the beginning, because we're humans, like when I learned about spirituality and I learned about energy and I learned about vibrate, like those things were never taught to me. Um, just because the people teaching me, my parents and stuff, didn't know. They didn't know what to teach, right? And so when I started like learning about these pieces, I was fascinated and I was so curious. And I became like a sponge. I wanted more and more and more. And because I was excited, I wanted to tell everybody about everything. And sometimes that would include telling them what they were doing wrong. And that's not received very well. Um,
no.
and I had to learn to honor, and we say this so cliche, but I had to learn to honor that everybody's on their own journey. And and I had to remember that I awoken. I really don't like that term, but I awoken at the right divine time for me. There's no way it could have been any sooner. It doesn't matter all of the experiences I went through. I wasn't ready to
Yeah.
receive a new way of looking at things. It would have frightened me. And if it frightened me, then I would have closed it down and I would have never looked again in this lifetime, right? And so it's a process of just following the breadcrumbs to get to a place where your not only alignment is right, but you're ready to receive the information. The information is always going to be out there for everybody. Everything you want to tell them, the information's there. It's not our responsibility to show everybody. It's our responsibility to live embodied. When we live embodied, yeah, when we are embodying our light, we love ourselves, we trust ourselves, we have boundaries, we have healthy relationships, then we teach all of those people in our life. And
Yeah.
it's really our responsibility as the one changing to teach those that we love, because they don't know. Think about how confused you were in the beginning. I don't know what the hell's happening to me. The last thing I need to do is tell you about what's happening to me. Um, so it's just really that self-forgiveness piece and forgiveness for others.
Mhm.
It's okay. I have people close to me that we don't have one spiritual conversation about anything ever. That's just not um that's just not our relationship. And because I can honor where they're at and love them and know that their higher self and their guides are going to lay the path work for them just as mine did.
Okay. That's beautiful. And I think that's a great way to end this segment. And again, like we have so much more to talk about. So maybe you can come back on and talk about some of the different Andara crystals, because we were talking about the Andaras and your Sintamati stones. And
Yes.
okay, well, thank you so much for being here with me today. Thank you for those watching the show. And next time, we're going to have an amazing guy talking about his hybrid children that he met and his awakening experience. So stay tuned for next week, but I will see you all soon. Aloha.